Mike, there's a phrase that you've been using a little bit, and you've used a couple times. Make good decisions through the process. And I hear it again and again. Help us make good decisions through the process. Could you explain that a little bit more?
Obviously, if you're an undrafted player, it's going to be a tough process to get in. But it's not going to be impossible. It's not going to be impossible to make it on a team. But your work is going to be cut out for you, and you're going to have to be intelligent about selecting the teams that have the most openings at your position. That's why you want to check the rosters about how many players are graduating out, how many are returning. You want to try to position yourself with the best opportunity on a team, if you're an undrafted player, that you could possibly have success with, since we all know what the odds are of making it. So you want to position yourself by choosing the right teams, A. But then beyond that, you want to do it for some other reasons. And the other reasons are that they do cost money to do these tryouts. And not only do they cost money, but they are a mental and a physical grind. I think John would be the first to admit that. I mean, and I know my son went through a series of them before he hooked up with a junior A team. And with each failed attempt, third, fourth, or fifth, it gets harder. Doesn't mean that somebody doesn't make it on their third or fourth or fifth attempt. My son made it on a later attempt rather than an earlier, but it just means that it gets harder. And having done a series of tryouts with my own son, I saw the same players showing up at all the tryouts, and I saw them, the same ones getting cut before the All-Star games, and pretty much the same ones making the All-Star game. And it isn't so much that the players that were getting cut earlier than later weren't quality players too, but as each week went by and each trial, which was 2 weeks later than the previous one, the competition's so stiff, and of course you're getting mentally frustrated, and you want this career so badly, you start wearing down, and it just becomes it truly becomes a real grind. So you want to pick the spots to go to. If you can afford to go to them all, and somehow your player is good enough to stay mentally sharp and physically sharp, I guess you could go all summer till you make a team. But if not, I think it's important to pick the right spots. And the first way of doing that is to see what kind of openings there potentially are at your position. And then the second thing is to recognize the cost and the grind that's there so that you do the right decision making. And then to expound on that, let's take the situation if you don't make the junior A team by the time you're done with it. That's the part I'm really concerned about. I've talked about how much I value an education in this process. I don't want to see good citizens and good educated potential young players, high school age players, just focus on that D1 career and then give up not only hockey but give up education. So my advice when I consult with my players that I consult with and coach is to lay out your tryout schedule if you're not a drafted player. Get hooked up with the tryouts that you feel you have the best chance. Keep it to a reasonable number because of the cost and the grind that I just mentioned. And then at the same point, at the beginning of summer, make sure, quite frankly, that you're pre-registered in at least one or more D3 colleges that you would have an interest in playing hockey for, in locations that you like, in programs that you may like. So you really do need to examine that D3 concept up front and get registered, because I've seen this happen more than once. The player thinks he's going to make a tryout, and he's just convinced he's going to play for John's. It used to be with the Sioux Indians. He was going to play for the Sioux Indians when they existed, and he just, didn't even line up a second tryout because he was convinced, and he talked with you ahead of time. He knew he had a good chance, and for whatever reason didn't show well, didn't make the tryout. And then he's scrambling to get into other tryouts, and then all of a sudden he's not really going to instead of lining up 3 tryouts where he picked teams where they had the most openings at his position, all of a sudden he missed the one he wanted, and so he ended up just scrambling to find 2 more tryouts by the end of the summer, and he ended up in positions where teams didn't really have that many openings. So now he's really low on the pecking order. He's made it a hard grind, and he didn't have any colleges lined up, and then it ends up they don't make any of them, and all of a sudden it's the fall, and what do you do? Now you can play at some of those other leagues, a little lesser leagues, but then of course you got the cost of playing there, and now you've got to go from that league up to the NA, up to the. I mean, you've extended everything, and you don't have any college choice. So I always feel like one of my best friends says, always good to have options, and it is good to have options. So I think that if you're a non-drafted player and you're a graduated senior, and this is the year you need to progress your hockey career by playing juniors, I think the intelligent thing to do is to line up the right amount of tryouts with the best opportunity and simultaneously evaluate in late spring, early summer, the D3 colleges you might want to play for and get pre-registered there so that if it doesn't work out the way you hope. You have a backup plan, and you can go to college and play some good college hockey and step right in there and not be missing a beat. Why step down a level of hockey if you could really be stepping up a level and getting on with your education? That's kind of the way I feel.